Alright. Hello and good morning, everyone. This is Old Maker and the Mornings. So, my neighbors helped me out the other night, and technically last night too. Poor guys. Before I started the stream, sitting here and chatter, and I'm just like, oh, is there somebody outside my trailer? Well, technically yes, but they were in their own space. Telling them what's going on and want to go ahead. You are trying to figure out how to be able to get into your trailer because your dog's locked out. I get it. And I was like, I'm willing to attempt to pick it if you're willing to let me try. They're like, nah, that's a locksmith. I'm like, okay. I would prefer you use a locksmith as well. Just because, well, I'm not a locksmith. I would be picking my first lock. Okay. Let me rephrase that. I'd be picking my first non-chintzy security lock. I've picked a number of chintzy security locks. Shit. I'd be lying if I didn't say that if I said I didn't find a way around a couple of masters. Mind you, they're low-level master, but find a way around them. Not particularly useful skills anymore. I haven't been for a while. I haven't been team for a while. When you got this mother that tries to lock you out of shit, punishment, and you need that shit to survive, you find a way. Yeah, you die. Or die inside, whichever the case may be. Oh. But, good morning, everybody. I'm up. Groggy is still kind of here, so bear with me. Let's get rolling. We've got a few today. Let's see if this one's a short. Nope. But we'll start with 5-minute news.
The foundation of American Constitution establishes the separation of checks and balances, individual rights, and the rule of law. Executive, legislative, and judicial branches of government were supposed to operate independently, checks the powers of the other. An independent judiciary was supposed to ensure that laws were applied fairly and that constitutional rights were upheld. The media was supposed to provide factual, non-partisan information to the public and expose corruption. But when these guardrails collapse through executive overreach, misinformation, corporate profiteering, and the inevitable erosion of public trust, democracy also collapses. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, a healthy dose of American exceptionalism is currently preventing many citizens from acknowledging this shared reality that an authoritarian regime has completely taken over the US government and is dismantling it, brick by brick. You might not feel it right away, if you don't engage with politics or if you don't access public services, then it may have invaded you completely. But eventually you'll discover, immediately after it's too late, that you took too little interest in the election and the intentions of the MAGA Republicans who have been planning this hostile takeover for years. Hell, they even wrote it down. Donald Trump's flurry of executive orders has significantly expanded his presidential powers in ways that threaten the rule of law and the democratic norms in the US. Among his most controversial actions are the abrupt dismissal of 17 inspectors general, agency watchdogs, without the legally required 30-day notice of Congress, an executive order rejecting birthright citizenship for children of undocumented immigrants in defiance of the 14th Amendment, and mass pardons for more than 1,500 individuals convicted for their roles in the January 6 Capitol attack. After the White House budget offering,
let's not forget the decreeing that the country has only two genders, of which were all by his definition female. That's not hyperboiled. Go read the fucking thing. Stupid.
has issued a directive that could have temporarily blocked $3 trillion in federal funds from reaching various state and federal programs. 23 attorneys general successfully petitioned 2 federal judges to pause the measure. Many of Trump's executive orders were foreshadowed during his campaign, but their sheer number and speed appeared to be calculated to overwhelm political opponents, mirroring Trump strategist Steve Bannon's strategy to flood the zone and drown out democratic resistance and media scrutiny. Trump has justified his dismissals of inspectors general by falsely claiming they are standard, a common thing to do. Similarly, he has defended his broad use of pardons with the baseless assertion that those convicted were victims of a weaponized Justice Department responsible for a grave national injustice. Former federal prosecutors and legal experts warn that some of Trump's executive actions are eroding the rule of law. They align with his authoritarian tendencies, his efforts to expand presidential power. Meanwhile, congressional Democrats and labor unions are pushing back against severe cost-cutting measures championed by him.
Except for Teamsters, which, of course, jumped on the Trump train.
Elon Musk at the so-called Department of Government Efficiency. The department has come under intense scrutiny for its deep cuts to the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID. Around a dozen Democratic members of Congress attempted to enter the Department of Education this morning in response to reports that Trump would soon order it dismantled, but they were denied access. The group tried for about 10 minutes to get in, but were informed they would not be allowed access by a plain-clothed Trump henchman. The police were called and were positioned inside the building's lobby. They left with their tails between their legs. Legal experts say Trump's flurry of executive actions is designed to expand presidential authority and may be a strategic attempt to bring certain cases before the Supreme Court, where the MAGA majority could rule in favor of his broad interpretation of executive power, while congressional Republicans are silent. Democrats have intensified their opposition. About 24 Democratic state attorneys general have filed lawsuits, and federal judges have temporarily blocked 2 of Trump's most extreme measures. Relentless crackdown on illegal immigration, a hardline approach to law and order, the purging of gender ideology workers from schools, erosion of academic freedom, judicial independence, the free press, an alliance with Christian nationalism, assault on democratic institutions. Responding to Trump's order that terminated diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives across the federal government, the National Cryptologic Museum taped sheets of brown paper over plaques that celebrate women and people of color who have served the National Security Agency, which intercepts overseas conversations and breaks foreign government codes.
I got cheaper from CD keys.
I got a cheaper from CD keys.
I got cheap CD keys.
They got overseas conversations.
The reason why that one I have the ability to believe, psychologically speaking, yeah, that fits Trump's behavior. That 100% is well within, yeah, well within the bounds. But doesn't make it any less disgusting. People voted for him because they feel they were being seen or given the credit they deserved. Well, for those of you who voted for him, how do you feel now? Feel seen, heard? You feel like you've gotten that credit you were looking for? I mean, you went looking in the wrong place for fucking sure. But are you getting some of it?
Breaks foreign government codes. The authoritarian model of Viktor Orban's Hungary has long been admired by Donald Trump's Make America Great Again movement. Now, admiration is turning into emulation. In the early weeks of Trump's second term, analysts warn the urbanization of America is accelerating at an alarming pace. Tech billionaire Elon Musk at his side, Trump has moved swiftly to silence critics, punish the media, allies, weaken federal institutions, exploit presidential immunity, and test the limits of his authority. Many of these actions are unconstitutional and illegal, with Congress largely powerless. Only the federal courts have managed to slow them down. A systemic dismantling of democratic institutions and media control serves as a cautionary tale of how gradual but deliberate changes can pave the way for authoritarianism. His party used its parliamentary supermajority to rewrite the Constitution, to reshape the judiciary and restructure universities to ensure long-term party loyalty. He created a system where financial resources and media control are handed to allies, allowing his government to dominate public opinion and marginalize dissent. Sound familiar? The Heritage Foundation's Project 2025, a far-right blueprint for Trump's second term, reflects many of Viktor Orban's strategies. Orban has actively cultivated ties with Trump's inner circle, speaking at the Conservative Political Action Conference and meeting with Trump and Musk at Mar-a-Lago. On his first day back in office, Trump pardoned 1,500 individuals involved in the January 6th insurrection, including those who assaulted Capitol police officers. Driven by vengeance, fired federal prosecutors investigating him and hinted at broader purges within the FBI. Following Orban's example, Trump has intensified cultural warfare. He issued executive orders banning transgender athletes from women's sports and forced a federal task force led by Attorney General Pam Bondi to root out what he calls anti-Christian bias in government. His administration is working to sideline mainstream media while elevating a right-wing ecosystem of influencers and podcasters. Former Trump White House speechwriter Darren Beatty is back, appointed as the State Department's acting Undersecretary for Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs. Despite writing on X, competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work. And unfortunately, our entire national ideology is predicated on coddling the feelings of women and minorities and demoralizing competent white men. Musk's platform X has become a powerful far-right propaganda tool, while Facebook has dropped fact-checking and efforts are underway to bring TikTok under US control. Trump has even sued major news outlets over negative coverage, with some settling under pressure. Meanwhile, the Pentagon is rotating out 4 major news organizations from its press pool, replacing them with Trump-aligned outlets. Perhaps the most dramatic transformation has been Trump's assault on the federal government. He's fired at least 17 inspectors general, dismantled key agencies, halted federal funding to states and non-profits, and openly defined Congress's constitutional role in allocating federal funds. Government workers face pressure to resign. Entire departments are being shuttered and federal data is being handed over to Musk's so-called Department of Government Efficiency, raising concerns concerns about conflicts of interest and misuse of public funds.
It's time for you to get your reading superpower. So stop straining your eyes and start listening instead. I have to do a lot of reading for my job.
Concerns about conflicts of interest and misuse of public funds. Musk's allies even orchestrated a hostile takeover of USAID, locking out employees and vowing to dismantle the agency. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stepped in as acting administrator, but Musk celebrated on X, boasting, "We spent the weekend feeding USAID into the wood chipper." Musk's influence extends to the Office of Personnel Management, the OPM, where federal employees are being offered buyouts while loyalists are installed in key positions. People being forced to resign, being bribed with 8 months' pay that they might never receive. His team is pushing for a 50% budget cut and implementing zero-based budgeting at the General Services Administration, which oversees federal contracts and properties. Despite holding billions in government contracts himself, Musk now wields immense unchecked power over Washington. Unsurprisingly, a wave of lawsuits seeks to halt the moves. Protests are erupting outside government agencies and congressional phone lines are overwhelmed. By those sounding the alarm of retaliation, Edward Martin, the interim U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, threatened legal action against anyone who impedes DOJ's operations or harasses its personnel. "We are coordinating with the FBI and other agencies to take rapid action," Martin posted on X, warning that prosecutors were ready. For now, the courts remain a check on Trump's power. Judges have temporarily blocked his attempts to end birthright citizenship, slash the federal workforce, and freeze funding, but with Congress sidelining civil service protections eroding and executive power consolidating, the threat to American democracy is complete. There is literally no way to counter burning down American institutions. And when our populations fails and the courts fails, it seems that only the collective power of people may be the only way to be heard. Some talk of a national strike withdrawing labor, holding the country to ransom, peaceful protest, engaging with representatives, and remembering always that there are more of us than there are of them. I'm Anthony Davis. You can find me on the 5 Minute News YouTube channel and podcast, on Wednesdays co-hosting Uncovered, and on Sunday on the Weekend Show with Midas Touch.
Why is filing your tax return with Tax USA different? Well, for starters, our premium federal tax returns are free. I'm not sure how JD Vance could be more emasculated than he is right now. So here's what happened. Yesterday, the Wall Street Journal reported about one of Elon's teen and 20-somethings who are gaining access to all of Americans' sensitive information, including Social Security numbers. Quote, Marco Alez, a 25-year-old who is part of a cadre of Elon Musk lieutenants deployed by the Department of Government Efficiency to scrutinize federal spending, resigned after the Wall Street Journal asked the White House about his connection to the account. Quote, just for the record, I was racist before it was cool, the account posted in July. You could not pay me to marry outside my ethnicity. Normalize Indian hate. Here's where JD Vance comes in. He took to Twitter writing, here's my view. I obviously disagree with some of Velez's posts, but I don't think stupid social media activity should ruin a kid's life. We shouldn't reward journalists who try and destroy people ever. So I say, bring him back. If he's a bad dude or a terrible member of the team, fire him for that. Now, this would probably be a good time to note that JD Vance is the husband of his Indian American wife. He is the father to his 3 Indian American kids. This is a photo of Vance and his wife in Indian garb. And his stance here is that the kid who resigned for posting normalized Indian hate should face no accountability. That these kinds of people should have no repercussions despite the environment they create for the people like...
Because they quite literally think freedom of speech means freedom of consequences of your speech. They don't think they're supposed to be held accountable for it. They think we're fucking up by trying to hold them accountable for it. That's it. For real. When will y'all learn this? Stop being surprised by their actions. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm not saying don't report on it. I'm saying don't be surprised. Because it's happened multiple times already, and it's going to happen again. These people do not like being called out for their shitty behavior. It pisses them off because they think we're not supposed to do it.
The ones living in J.D. Vance's house. This really is the grass cheering on the lawnmower. So why he do it? Two reasons. One, he's a hostage to a party that celebrates racism. And so if racism happens, then Vance has an obligation to applaud him, at least to remain a member of good standing in the Republican Party. And second, because this kid was one of Elon's guys. And while Vance may be the vice president, he doesn't hold a candle to Elon in terms of power. And so if Elon needs cover to get one of his kids back, then guess who it's going to be to jump on the grenade? That's right, J.D. Vance. And that's exactly what happened. Because both Trump and Elon used Vance's tweet as justification to bring back the guy who, again, thinks that Vance's own wife and kids should be hated in their own country.
Yep.
Here's Trump.
Audio shared for some inappropriate posts. The vice president said, bring him back. What do you say?
Well, I don't know about the particular thing, but if the vice president said that, did you say that? I'm with the vice president. Thank you, Peter.
Which of course led to this tweet by Elon. Quote, he will be brought back to err as human to forgive divine. And so now, thanks to Vance, a kid whose stated position is that Indians should feel hated in America will be rehired, and Vance gets to go home to his Indian American wife and Indian American kids and look them in the eyes and say, guess what daddy did at work today? And hey, who knows, maybe when his own family eventually contends with racism in Trump's America, he can explain to them that he was proud to play just a small but important role in normalizing and encouraging that exact behavior.
No, he won't. He's
Your
coward.
IRS e-file is now open. Snap your W-2 and file your taxes 100% free.
Plus, you're proud to play just a small but important role in normalizing and encouraging that exact behavior. I mean, I don't know how to say this any more clearly. Vance had a chance to defend his own family, and he opted to defend the Indian-hating bigot instead. There is always a price that Donald Trump's sycophants have to pay. Sometimes, that cost is selling out your own family. Granted, this isn't exactly new for Vance. If he's a pro in anything, it is selling his soul for power. After all, this is the same guy who once said this.
In 2016, you called your running mate Donald Trump unfit for the nation's highest office. The Washington Post reported new messages last week in which you also disparaged Trump's economic record while he was president, writing to someone in 2020, quote, Trump thoroughly failed to deliver his economic populism.
You said, I'm a never Trump guy. Never liked him. Terrible candidate. Idiot if you voted for him. Might be America's Hitler. Might be a cynical a-hole. Cultural heroine.
Again, from Trump's vice president himself, J.D. Vance. Might be America's Hitler. So, what was Hitler's, the fourth general down or some shit like that? That's you, J.D. Vance.
Only to then jump on the ticket with the very guy who he so clearly hated. If you were looking for Vance's dignity, that makes two of us. But you might be thinking to yourself,
No, wrong word. Integrity. That's not dignity, that's integrity. That is quite literally an example of someone showing no integrity. To make that statement before, and then nowadays, side with them? That's a lack of integrity.
it's fine, because it's all in service of the broader mission. And in case you were wondering what that broader mission that Vance is enabling was, well, you've got Elon hacking away at essential government institutions like USAID, which not only delivers crucial life-saving international aid like clean water and HIV prevention, all for roughly half of 1% of the budget, but it's brought us good news on the entire globe. That makes all of us safer. And now that USAID is gone, thanks to Elon, guess who's going to fill that void? China. That means China will gain a foothold across the world while the US retreats, which seems antithetical to America's interests, but not to Elon Musk's business interests. America just got sold out so that Elon can make more money from Beijing to Shanghai. Or how about the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, about which Elon tweeted, CFPB RIP. So that we're clear, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau literally exists to protect consumers from predatory banks and financial institutions. It's returned over $21 billion to 205 million consumers so far. It sent 6.8 million consumer complaints to companies for response, including 4.6 million complaints about credit reporting, 83,000 complaints about medical debt collection, and 96,000 complaints about student loans. 63 million unique visitors used Ask CFPB, which is an online resource for answers to a variety of common financial questions, and the CFPB levied a historic $2 billion fine in a single enforcement action against Wells Fargo for mismanagement of auto loans, mortgages.
There it is. You just found out why. Wells Fargo got in trouble because they got caught doing bad. See, the problem is, or the problem I have with this, is you take the time to gather the information and just fucking connect four, dude. It's not even as difficult as playing chess. It's not even as difficult as checkers. Trump is quite limited. Trump and Elon are playing a game of Connect Four with y'all, and they're winning. Meanwhile, you're sitting there being told, "You're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. You beat me. You kicked my ass." Now you're eating up. Slowest game of Connect forever.
And deposit accounts. This agency, again, quite literally only exists to... The result of this move by Elon is that Americans will have no recourse when they get screwed over by banks. If anyone can explain how this helps Americans, I'm all... What has been particularly active doing is getting Americans private data, including access to your social security numbers. And when asked about that, well, Trump didn't seem all that bothered.
Security in our country. They get it very easily.
No big deal. If Elon wants it, he can have it. And I would ask these Republicans how they would feel if...
Okay, the question was hard to hear, but basically is he was asking, why does Doge need this information? What? Where am I at? Oh.
I usually don't use this mic for the morning news because I do the segments off my cell phone. I forgot you were referring to the mic. You prefer this one, and I don't blame you. I think this one sounds better. But it also has a lot better noise canceling and doesn't do the shots very good. That one, honestly, there's nothing more to it that's really worth it. Give me that. No, no. No, don't you do that. Okay. Now I can make it happen where y'all can hear it and everything. I've just got to be able to see the chat so that way I can respond, because I'm not using the TTS right now. I don't for my morning news segments. Run to the colon.
It's not like we didn't see this coming from a mile away. So Time Magazine released their latest issue with Elon Musk on the cover, behind Donald Trump's own Resolute desk. Now, two things Trump really cares about are being at the center of attention and Time Magazine. He loves Time Magazine so much that he literally hung fake Time Magazine covers at his golf courses.
Yeah.
Landing on the cover of Time Magazine is an impressive accomplishment. President Trump actually has a cover featuring him hanging at 4 of his golf courses.
The only problem is the cover is a fake.
And here it is. The cover features headlines like "The Apprentice is a smash, television smash," and "Trump is winning on all fronts, even TV." And this is dated back to March 1st of 2009.
Yeah, but there was no magazine issued on that date, and Time Magazine has confirmed this is a fake.
Oh!
Several signs on the phony cover that give it away.
The controversy here.
All of that was to give you some background to better understand Trump's reaction to Elon getting the top spot on the issue, sitting at, again, Trump's own desk. Here's what happened when he was asked about it today.
Mr. President, do you have a reaction to the new Time Magazine cover that has Elon Musk sitting behind your Resolute desk?
タイムマガジンにイーロン・マスクが、大統領の机の後ろで座っている写真がありますけども、それに関するコメントは何かありますか？
Is Time Magazine still in business? I didn't even know that.
Is Time Magazine still in business? My God, could you get any more bitter? Trump is such
Seriously.
a bitch that he makes Gretchen Wieners look subtle. Unless you think that Trump has always been sour on Time Magazine, here he was literally 8 weeks ago.
I have to say, Time Magazine getting this honor for the second time. I think I like it better this time, actually. But
For real. Trump has been on and on about Time Magazine before this. If you didn't have something in Time Magazine, he didn't think you were shit. So... yeah.
I do want to thank Time Magazine. I've been on the cover many times. I don't know who has the record, but I can probably talk well about 25% of the covers. 25% are great. The others I just sort of hide. But it's been an honor, and every time it's an honor, I will tell you. And thank you very much for doing it. And thank the whole group at Time. Really very professional people. Thank you very much.
A tremendous honor, and every time it's an honor. Wow. Guess he really does like the magazine, meaning when he lashes out this time, it's not that he doesn't care, it's precisely that he does.
And
granted, he's got good reason to be insecure. It's become apparent that Donald Trump is little more than a vehicle for Elon's ambitions. Think about the very first act that Elon pulled when Trump took office, killing the spending bill's anti-China provisions. Why? Well, Elon has business interests in China, and he doesn't want to do anything to hurt his bottom line. And so, funding for kids' cancer research, well, that was stripped away. But the provisions to screen and regulate U.S. investments in China, that was put back in. And in fact, most recently, Elon was responsible for shutting down USAID. Now, I know that most people don't know what USAID does, but it's actually beneficial for two reasons. First, it offers invaluable help to the world, like clean water projects, HIV prevention programs, and more and more. Invariably a net positive for humanity. And for a fraction of the federal budget, nearly 0.5% of the budget, I think that's probably a good thing, considering most of our budget goes toward buying machines to kill people. But here's the second part. In exchange for those good things, we also engender alliances all over the planet, which during global conflicts is a good thing. It means that when we need help or strategic bases around the world, we've built up that goodwill. When USAID goes away, guess what country is taking the place of it? Guess what country fills that void? You guessed it, China. Now, normally Americans wouldn't want to allow China to become more powerful across the world. But again, guess who does business in China? Guess who spent years growing his companies in Shanghai? Guess who relies on China to pad his bottom line? Elon Musk. So by undermining our global alliances in deference to China, yes, it'll hurt our national security, but it's going to help Elon's business interests. And that's a point that I discussed with Senator Chris Murphy.
There's a race that's underway right now. Who is going to control, the piping of the international economy, the highways, the information highways, the port infrastructure, the supply of critical minerals that are necessary for chips and batteries. In order to control that infrastructure, you've got to have governments all over the world that are willing to sell it to you. And USAID helps us create relationships with countries so that when they're selling a port, they don't automatically just go to China, that they at least let the United States make a bid. Now that USAID is gone off the playing field, the only place those countries have to go for, help confronting viruses or addressing a famine or economic development is China. And so China will be able to, build all of these relationships around the world, and then all of a sudden we'll wake up one day and the United States economy doesn't have access to the global economy because China owns it all. So when USAID steps off the playing field, China benefits, and I do not believe that that is coincidental to Elon Musk having a number of very open issues through his businesses with the Chinese government. They may be willing to do him some nice favors, given that Elon Musk has taken USAID off the playing field.
yeah.
It's so nakedly obvious how that is not beneficial to the long-term success of like, sure, being able to say, okay, we've cut X amount of dollars out of the budget, and the immediate benefit, the short-term benefit of that is obvious, at least as a talking point for Republicans, but by basically taking away any of our ability to be able to have relationships and optimize those relationships, leverage those relationships across the world, how that's going to hurt us in the long term, how is that not blatantly obvious to every single Republican in government right now who's blindly going along with this? I mean, really the only person on face that this seems to benefit is somebody who just so happens to be doing business in China, which is Elon.
No, that's right. Although, frankly, it benefits a lot of other billionaires because a lot of them make massive amounts of money off of China. Why did the Chinese tariffs come in at a much lower number than the Mexico and Canada tariffs? That's because the billionaire class wants to continue to make money off of making stuff over in China.
And let's be clear, the only way that Elon is able to do any of this is by using Trump as his vehicle.
Yeah.
It really is the circle of life in the Republican side of the aisle. Trump uses his voters by lying to them about lower costs so that he can gain power, just like Elon uses Trump to help his own business interests in China and around the world.
And gain power.
Just a circle of self-interested narcissists stepping over each other to help themselves
Mhm.
and politically. And by the way, that's a point that Kara Swisher made here.
I think using Trump as a vehicle, and I think think ultimately Elon has the power because he has the money, he has the influence, the relationships, and Trump is older, and at the end of it, they need him for so long. I think in that way, I think Elon's much more powerful. But I don't know. He is the president, but I don't know if that's as good a job as it used to be.
And the reality is, it's only going to get worse from here as Elon's priorities continue to take center stage. What's worse, it's already beginning to become grating for the American people.
And the job of president wasn't supposed to be a good job. That's not supposed to be the reason you were going for president. Oof. Yeah. I mean, it is a good career. No, they are short-lived careers. That's what they are. They're not jobs. They're careers. That's why somebody gets called a career politician. They make a living off of being a politician.
According to the latest Morning Consult poll, Elon's approval rating is already underwater among Americans.
Good.
49% disapprove to 39% approve. That is a net negative 10-point approval rating, which is especially bad considering this is the honeymoon period. This is when Elon should be the most popular as Trump's little shadow president. And yet, the fact that he's starting off with a net negative approval rating goes to show that even his high watermark is dangerously low. And of course, it's not difficult to see why. While Elon's promised that the Department of Government Efficiency would root out waste, corruption, and abuse, in fact, it's done the opposite. It's shut down vital programs that keep the United States safe. It's put our healthcare and essential services at risk, like Medicare and programs for homeless veterans. It's put our sensitive information in the hands of, in some instances, random teenagers, including one who just resigned because his social media accounts show him advocating for eugenics. Donald Trump framed Doge as some high-level effort to root out corruption. It's a bunch of teenagers and 20-somethings who want a white ethnic and access to your social security numbers.
Okay, you need to stop calling them teenagers. This is part of why you lost that vote group. It's a good part of it. They're tired of being called kids and teenagers. That's all they've heard in their lives so far. By doing so in this framework, you're being stupid. Because you're not taking the time to stop and think for a second and go, how did I feel at that point in time? I hated being called a kid still. I was a grown-ass adult and had to take on all the responsibilities.
Can you imagine what Republicans would be saying if some random 25-year-old anti-Republican liberal had access to your social security numbers and other private data? Lou Dobbs would resurrect himself from the dead. And yet, that's what Republicans are doing right now. So, of course, Americans are souring on this corrupt oligarch taking an axe to the government. And given Donald Trump's reaction to Elon being on the cover of Time, it looks like he may be too. Before you go, just a...
Okay. Next one. Minus 13 hours. 16, 14.
Do you need a free, easy way to capture your gameplay? Introducing Outplayed. Record anything on your PC.
I find it ironic that they keep referring to Elon Musk as an unelected bureaucrat or whatever their terminology is they're using when they've stood silent over the past 4 years when unelected bureaucrats have seemingly been running our country. They've been operating their agencies without any oversight, without any accountability, and they've been doing what they wanted to do, whether it was letting employees work from home or enacting policy like forgiving student loan debt when clearly the law didn't state that. I support what Elon.
Now, if you have any clue, this is James Comey, or Comer, whatever. And dude's full of shit. He's damn near lied about everything so far. None of that happened. And it's absolutely ridiculous.
Elon Musk is doing, he's being very transparent with the American people. He's tweeting out multiple tweets per hour saying what his goals are, and I think it's what the American people want.
James Comey, chairman of the Oversight Committee, Republican charge of the Oversight Committee. Couple of things in that opening video. First of all, he's chairman of the Oversight Committee for the last 2 years. Oversight, you may recall, one of the things he said that was so great about Elon is that the Democrats have been running these agencies without oversight. Now, I know you guys may not understand government as well as I do. That's his fucking job. But unfortunately, they haven't been doing it, apparently, according to him. But he likes the way that Elon, in his theory, Elon Musk is being very transparent because he tweets out to his followers. And if you follow what's going on much, Elon Musk posts mostly lies, and then his followers believe it, and then terrible things happen. And there's been a lot of them, and it's not great. How's it going? Well, it depends on who you talk to. Actually, believe it or not, of course, CNN being CNN, they actually did some polling on it. And so let's check out what CNN has to say about his polling right now.
The American people did not sign up for this. They voted in Donald Trump. They did not vote in Elon Musk. A key role for Musk in Trump's administration. You see this 39% support, 53%, the clear majority opposed. They don't want this. The American people don't want this. No, no, no. Just 36% of independents support the idea of Elon Musk having a key role in the Trump administration. So the bottom line, when it comes to all of this and Elon Musk being everywhere, it seems, in the federal government, trying to trim down the federal deficit, the American folks, simply put, do not want Elon Musk having a key role in the Trump administration.
Even though he has a very key role at this point. How is it?
Yeah, he does have a very key role. There's a lot to talk about with that. I mean, if you guys are paying attention at all, he essentially deleted a government agency that was founded by law in 1961. His people are mucking about in the Treasury records. His people are mucking about in the OPM. They're investigating. They're going into different organizations right and left with no oversight whatsoever, no accountability. And now we find out who a lot of these guys are. It's 25-year-old kids. As we're going to record this, Wall Street Journal is reporting that one of the 25-year-olds actually has resigned in disgrace because they discovered a bunch of really racist stuff that he's been saying for years. That's who's out and mucking on. And this is the guy who was in the Treasury telling Treasury officials what to do. It's disturbing beyond belief. And, Democrats, to their credit, are trying to fight back. But you have to watch this clip. It's a little longer. But here's what happened when Democrats tried to get some accountability in, again, the Oversight Committee this week.
Given his prominence and his importance, I move that the committee subpoena Elon Musk to come forward
Excuse me.
as a witness at the earliest possible moment. And I so move.
There's been a motion and second. The motion is not debatable.
Mr. Chairman, why is it not debatable? Point of order.
It is debatable.
Mr. Chair, strike the last one.
Hold on.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, why don't we want to debate Elon Musk coming in and talking to us about his work and how he's enriched himself for $64 billion?
Mr. Chairman.
Chair recognizes Dr. Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to table the motion.
There's
I
a
second.
motion to table. There's a
Mr.
second.
Chairman.
Second by Mr. Higgins.
Point of order,
Now,
Mr.
the motion is not debatable. As many
Point of order, Mr.
are in
Chairman.
favor of tabling. Point of order, state your point.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's outrageous that this committee will not even entertain a
No, you Mr. Chairman, that's not a point of order. You know, I agree. Point of order.
Our federal agents
Out of order.
This is the government right now. If you didn't see, that was Comey up there. This gal, as well as several others, were bringing up a good point.
Yes, let's have order in this country.
You're out of order. You know you're out of order. You know the rules of this committee. There's been a motion.
Mr. Elon Musk is out of order and dismantling.
I call the question. There's been a motion and second. Motion by Dr. Fox, second by Mr. Higgins to table. All those in favor of tabling signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the motion. Mr. Chairman, I ask for a recorded.
That was very blatantly more no's than ayes. There's no question to that. Lay down.
The no's outnumber that by a lot. Did you see what that? I mean, that was yesterday, or I guess Wednesday in the Oversight Committee. Just insanity. And what happened was the Dems laid a trap. They all showed up. You look at the left side of that screen, you can see them sitting there in mass, and the Republicans weren't. So they moved that motion, and then you can see Republicans frantically running the room to try to save the day in case when it goes to a vote. My favorite part is the first thing Comey says, this little aide comes running and says, "Can I table this? Can I table this?" The guy's been the chairman for 2 freaking years and doesn't even know what the rules of his own rules are. Luckily, Virginia Fox, if you know her, she's like 82 years old, has been there since Jefferson. She bailed him out with her motion to dismiss. But again, this is what we're seeing. No oversight. From the beginning of this, where he says, "Oh, Elon Musk is doing great," to the way he runs his committee, the oversight committee whose job this is. So Democrats are fighting back at least. But that was crazy. And that's DC in the age of the oligarchs, okay? And it is a different, very time. But that was a crazy week. So, you know, what is Elon Musk doing? And is there a plan? And the answer becomes clearer as he goes along. And it looks like he does. And it's bad. And luckily, our friend Heather Cox Richardson posted her letters from America Today, and an incredibly smart person got his eye on this. And as always, here on Democracy, we reached out to him. We got Gil here. We got a great show, a lot to talk about. Let's get to the show because we have to talk about this.
Why is everyone spiraling over YouTube banning ad blockers? Like, chill guys, just use Pi. It's a free Chrome extension, and it basically...
Welcome. I am Fred Wellman, host of On Democracy with FP Wellman. You are in the right place, right here on the West Coast Network. I always say it's been a crazy week in Washington. Holy shit, was it a crazy week in Washington? And it just gets crazier. And as we watch these events unfold, I really want to talk to people who are keeping an eye on it. And I'll tell you who's doing that. You know, Elon Musk has gone in there, and it's increasingly clear the Republicans have no intention of having any checks and balances on Trump or acting President Musk. And his Doge teams have been bullying government officials. I actually read a story today that OPM's morale has collapsed because one of these 25-year-olds was yelling at a senior director, calling him an idiot in the office. It is insanity up there. But you know, some folks here are seeing a pattern from the bizarre and frankly dystopian visions of a group of Silicon Valley leaders and their philosophical muse and a disturbing software developer. Gil Duran is an American journalist based in San Francisco. He serves as the California opinion editor for the Sacramento Bee, editorial page editor for the San Francisco Examiner. He's worked in California politics for, I think,
Yeah, I've heard of him.
half his adult life like me, and we're very glad. We're lucky to have Gil join us. Gil writes the Nerd Reich, an incredible, great newsletter about politics of Silicon Valley and otherwise. Gil, welcome on Democracy. I really appreciate you jumping on this opportunity.
Thanks for having me.
So, Gil, we were talking the pre-show about how Heather Cox Richardson mentioned today, and suddenly you've got a lot of attention. But you've written about. I read your article. I think it was July. You wrote about Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance's vision, the Silicon Valley vision of and the philosophy of a guy named Curtis Yarvin. Can you tell us a little bit? I guess start there. You know, when you saw J.D. Vance get nominated, you kind of saw some concerns right away with your understanding of the philosophical people they have behind that, didn't you?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I spent a lot of last year writing a series for the New Republic about something called the network state. That's this ideology coming out of Silicon Valley that calls for tech billionaires and their followers to take over governments around the world and basically become the main power center for the entire globe. And it involves, replacing existing money with crypto, replacing existing governments with tech-run governments, replacing existing media institutions with media outlets that answer to tech CEOs in particular. There's a whole theory they've been spelling out for years in conferences, in books, in podcasts, in interviews. And the group of people who are behind this are the people we hear a lot about now. Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, all the people involved with their hands on the Trump administration are the people I was writing about last year. And to some people, it kind of sounds like a conspiracy theory or kind of something overhyped.
No.
But again, I'm not using leaked stuff.
Let me be real. As I said, I've heard of Gil. I've read some of Gil's articles and whatnot. Gil is well studied, to put it lightly. And if Gil's seeing that, I guarantee you it's there. Gil's not a conspiracy theorist. If anything, he's a political scientist. As nasty as those two words together are. But yeah, we study everything, including our own politics.
Documents or conversations with shadowy figures, this is all stuff they've put online, that they've published, that they've said, and all I did was listen very carefully and outline what it was they were doing. Unfortunately, we are now living that reality.
Yeah.
Summer, when J.D. Vance became the vice presidential nominee, I wrote a piece about his relationship with a guy named Curtis Yarvin, who's called the house philosopher of the Peter Thiel verse, that's the word around Peter Thiel. And Curtis Yarvin has some very specific ideas about what should be done with American democracy, and I think they'll sound very familiar to anybody who's been watching the news lately.
Yeah, and that movement that you call the far right neo-reaction anarchist movement, the Dark Enlightenment, right? And that's dictatorship all. I mean, Yarvin's philosophy talks, and you said he was the house philosopher. And one of the things you wrote about was rage, right? Which sounds like Doge. Can you tell what we mean? What is the concept of rage?
Well, in 2012, Curtis Yarvin, under his nickname of Mencius Moldbug, which he has used a long time online, gave a speech in which the speech was about how to reboot the U.S. government. And at the heart of how to reboot the U.S. government was an idea he called RAGE, R-A-G-E, Retire All Government Employees, which is essentially a purge of the federal government and replacing those purged experts and career civil servants with people who answered.
I actually got to read that nice little bit that he's talking about now. Yeah.
Described as a dictator, and he said that if Americans want real reform in their government, they're going to have to get rid of their so-called dictator phobia. The idea here is that the federal government, that the bureaucracy has too much power over our lives, and that instead we should have a dictatorship where every rule, every regulation should be subject to one person's dictatorial whims. Before he started calling this a CEO kind of government, he described it as a return opinions, essentially. So it's a very anti-democratic philosophy that we're seeing here. Well, in 2022, Yarvin updated his rage idea with something he called the butterfly revolution. And in it, he envisioned a second Trump term where instead of running things himself or with his usual White House staff, Trump would turn over the federal bureaucracy to someone who would essentially act as a CEO dictator and work to purge the bureaucracy and build an army of people to take over and then begin dismantling democratic government from the inside, which sounds a lot like what Doge is attempting to do in Washington today.
I'm not a big believer in coincidence, right? I mean, RAGEDOGE. I mean, it almost feels like this is a plan. You know, it feels more. And again, it is so weird. I mean, I spent the whole day. I'm not gonna lie to you, Gil. I spent a good day parts to get ready for
It feels like they've been playing the long game, like they've been saying they've been doing.
I read your article back in July and others, and it does seem like something out of a science fiction novel. These guys could be the kings of the world and emperors. But as we watch this unfold, and something I mentioned to you earlier is, to me, the dismantling of USAID and the story that Musk tells is, for those who don't know, you know, obviously I can't imagine you don't know, but, you know, essentially they've painted USAID as this corrupt organization, which most of our foreign aid goes through there, that they're, you know, giving out whatever the crazy shit they're saying on the right wing. However, the story that Musk tells is he went to Trump and said, hey, we've looked at USAID and it's corrupt to the core. They're supporting terrorists and it's unsavable. We got to get rid of it. And Trump said, well, that's a big thing. Are you sure? He said, yeah, we got to do it. And Trump said, well, I guess so, if you say so. And to me, Gil, that struck me as the conversation between a CEO and the chairman of the board. I mean, that's kind of how you do it if you want to get rid of a division of your company, isn't it? I mean, do you hear that echo?
Definitely, that's what they're going for. But I think it's important also to remember what it is they're actually doing. Elon Musk is acting like a dictator who doesn't have to answer to the law, doesn't have to answer to the courts, and doesn't have to answer to Congress. So they want to use this corporate lingo, and I think that's a good framework for having a basic understanding of it. But what that really means is not complying with democratic governance and destroying democracy, right?
Which we're seeing already.
Trump didn't really have much of a say in the decision, I would say. It was more of his puppet master creating a story that makes it sound as if Trump, who apparently spends all day on Truth Social tweeting out his incoherent little attacks, had something to do with it. And by the way, USAID is just the beginning. They're going to do this to the FBI. They're going to do this to the CIA. They're going to do this to the IRS. They're going to do this to every part of government that is capable of holding them accountable or that is focused on helping the vast majority of people in this country. So this is just the beginning. It's not going to stop. They're going to be doing a new thing every week. And I think a lot of it's going to be based on lies and on disinformation. And the real question is how long the American people are going to tolerate it. Because as we can already see, as you pointed out, Musk's poll numbers are dropping. And so I think they're on some dangerous ground. I know it feels like right now they have a lot of power and there's nothing anybody can do. But you've been in politics. I've been in politics. When enough people get pissed off, when enough people are calling Congress and threatening to vote them out, you can get some action. And I think it's important that people start doing that now and consider this what it is, a 4-alarm fire. This is like 9/11 when the planes hit the towers. Our government is under attack, and if we let these people get their way, we will not have a democracy anymore. And I wish I was exaggerating, but again, I wrote all this stuff last year, right? And if Kamala Harris had won, I would look like a guy who had overreacted to a bunch of weirdos in tech. Unfortunately, if you go back and read my pieces of the New Republic, everything happening now was spelled out there. So I thought the threat was a little further off when I started writing. We've seen them being very active in trying to take over the government in San Francisco over the past few years. And that's where my reporting really started, was how this group of tech people had kicked out the DA, was trying to take over City Hall. But the opportunity opened up with J.D. Vance and with Trump to take over Washington. And now San Francisco is secondary. They're doing the exact same thing, but on a federal level. And the whole plan has been spelled out in public for years.
You know, if you follow me, you know I've got a crazy lifestyle. Now, this year, I've committed to creating healthier eating habits that last with about that. I remember reading about
Once Human is easily one of the best open world survival games of 2024, and it's loaded with your favorite survival game.
How they were trying to take over the city and create their own little utopia. And then, does it feel like, I mean, to a lot of us, I actually had Congressman Jared Huffman on the show the other day, on our Sunday show. And Jared, of course, represents everywhere from the Golden Gate Bridge to Oregon. So he's very involved in this area, too. And Jared and I had spoken in, I want to say June, about Project 2025. He launched the Project 2025 task force in Congress. And between I remember Elon wasn't on our radar then. Teddy Griggs, right? He kind of came in late. It felt like to the game. Was there any insight into how Elon suddenly appeared, inserted himself, and just seemed to have all this power in essentially 3 or 4 months? Did you get any insight on how quickly this all turned, or was it an idea of just grabbing an opportunity, perhaps?
Buying an opportunity, I would say. He's the richest man in the world. That's the only reason he's in that room right now, right?
Yeah.
He's the richest man in the world. And what happened right before Trump gets inaugurated? He gets billions of dollars from this meme coin scam, right? So the fix is in with Trump. That's already an old story. If Kamala Harris had made billions of dollars off of a meme coin right before the inauguration, we'd be in the middle of a constitutional crisis with CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and everybody else chopping at her relentlessly.
Yeah.
We have all moved on to other things. And I think that sends the message they can get away with this stuff. So it's because Musk is rich. The richest man in the world has bought himself the presidency, and he is wielding it however he sees fit. And I think a lot of Americans, including some swing voters who might have voted for Trump for whatever reason that we might not understand, are going to take offense to that as it continues to be put in their face.
Looks like I'm going to have to cut this short. Sadly. That one can't go. Mom and Dad are on their way over, and I don't stream while they're over here. Just respect for them not being on the stream. So I'm going to close the stream down, and I will